Hey guys, and welcome to the 31st installment of Updated Builds, a series of videos where I go back over Warframes that I already made one or more videos about and I bring their builds up to date. Now today we're going to take a look at Gara, who out of all the Warframes has given me the most trouble when finalizing a build, because I've played around with about 5 or 6 different builds and I didn't quite like any of them. So I did something that I just don't do anymore, and that was to go on the internet and try other people's builds to see if I like any of them, and spoiler alert, I didn't. Some of them were really strong, but I just didn't like the way they felt, so I gave her a bit more time, tried loads of different builds once again, and finally came up with something that I'm really happy with, and I decided to call it the Not So Glass Cannon, which I think describes it pretty well. And here is what the setup looks like. The aura I'm using here is Stand United for a little bit of extra armor, which adds a bit of beefiness to the setup, but also increases the health on Gara's Mass Vitrify wall because they gave it the Snow Globe treatment, so it now scales with armor as well. Then I wanted a bunch of duration, so I added Primed Continuity, Constitution, and Ogre Message. The standard continuity is going to be just fine, and this simply increases the duration on Shatterstorm, Spectral Rage, and the glassification that you get from Mass Vitrify. Then I am running Vitality and Steel Fiber, which in combination with Shatterstorm makes you pretty beefy, and Steel Fiber once again increases the health on the wall you get from Mass Vitrify. Then there is Streamline for a little bit of extra efficiency, so the abilities are cheaper, and finally Intensify, Transient Fortitude, and Power Drift for a nice chunk of power strength. Now, Shattered Lash, Gara's first ability, is also scaled by some melee mods on your melee weapon, not the stats on your melee weapon, and the mod pool is even more restricted than it is on something like Exalted Blade. So it gains damage from elemental mods, so I have 2 elemental mods, it doesn't really matter which ones you choose. Then generic melee damage, so I have Spot Strike and Prime Pressure Point. I'm also running Covered Lethality because you can do finishers on enemies that you've covered in glass with Mass Vitrify. And finally, if you want to scale the puncture-based version of Shattered Lash, you want to use puncture-based mods, and if you want to scale the slash-based version, so the one where you hold the ability down, you want to use slash-based mods. So you either want to decide which one you're going to use more and mod for that, or mod for a little bit of both like I did over here. This makes Shattered Lash do a nice chunk of damage with both the puncture and the slash version, and it can two-shot enemies up to sort of level 70, even though the stat screen only shows 1600 damage, but that's because that's the base damage before it gets scaled by the mods on your melee weapon. The majority of defense in this build comes in the form of stacking Splinter Storm on top of all the armor and health, though bear in mind that it doesn't make you immortal, so you still want to avoid as much damage as you can. Spectral Rage is kind of nice at lower levels, but it loses all of its effectiveness at high levels because the mirrors will detonate instantly as soon as something shoots at them, so it's not really worth using in higher level missions. Mass Vitrify is an awesome sort of an oh shit button at high levels because you're invincible while you're channeling it, and it will cover enemies in glass for almost 30 seconds, which if you have a Covered Lethality dagger should give you more than enough time to do finishers on all of them. Just bear in mind that you don't want to run at the enemies dead ahead, you kind of want to be at an angle, otherwise the finisher won't trigger. It's unfortunately not really worth it to use the wall from Mass Vitrify at higher levels, especially against some of the chunkier units that can do a lot of damage like heavy gunners, because even when I tried to go for full power strength, the wall still shattered really fast. As far as arcanes are concerned, I'm personally running Arcane Victory and Arcane Guardian, and I'm very happy with this setup. Arcane Victory provides some much needed healing from headshotting enemies, and Arcane Guardian just gives you a little bit of extra chunkiness with bonus armor. I'm very happy with how this setup turned out. It's very versatile, so you can do a lot of different things. For example, the wall from Mass Vitrify, while not very effective at sortie level, is fantastic for anything below sortie level because you can wall off a cryopod or a console and safely pepper enemies from the inside, making defense, mobile defense, or even interception extremely safe and chill up to sort of level 70-ish. Or you can just turn on Splinter Storm, get mental amounts of damage reduction, and going guns blazing into something like an Exterminate, Capture, Assassination, Spy, whatever you want, really. And it can still do the stupid I'm gonna stack Splinter Storm and absolutely murder everything by running at it thing, and it does it even better than before because we now have a full build with 200% power strength, so the damage scaling is even faster, and it can easily start ticking for around 20,000 on unarmored units after roughly 2 or 3 minutes of stacking. Which, by the way, you do by casting Splinter Storm on yourself, then casting Mass Vitrify, which will refresh your Splinter Storm and create the glass wall. You then want to run outside of the glass wall and break it with Shattered Lash, which will add a bunch of damage to your Splinter Storm. And you can do this forever because the damage stacks infinitely, so you can really get this to do a stupendous amount of damage. I'm talking like one-shotting level 100 heavy gunners and bombards by walking near them kind of damage. I mean, you can just see the amount of damage it does in the video. I've been stacking it for about 4 minutes and it ticks for about 7 to 10k on Grenier, which have a bunch of armor. And don't forget that Splinter Storm also gives you a massive damage reduction, so you are very beefy while you're doing this as well. And that's pretty much it for the build. Now if you want to try this out but you don't have the forma set up yet, the best way to forma in my opinion is to simply put on all the mods, and if they don't fit, look for the one with the highest capacity drain that's shared between all your builds, forma for that, and do that until all the mods fit. And I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.